Trump after the election.
Climate change will be in theaters nationwide August 4th.
Your Senate is rejecting cyber legal and monetary vows.
That's NPR Justice correspondent Gary Johnson.
Some of China's investigative journalists are quitting. Yes, there are investigative journalists in China, all run by the state. Yet some reporters at some of those state-controlled outlets were able to investigate and even bring down allegedly corrupt officials. At least they could until the last few years. Here's NPR's Anthony Q.
A chorus of frogs and cicadas fills the muggy air of Changsha. It's the capital of southern Hunan province. I'm at the Yuelu Academy, a 1,000-year-old school filled with stately classical buildings and tributes to famous graduates who have shaped the course of China's history. I'm here to meet former journalist Luo Changqing, who says Hunan's local culture had a big impact on his career.
No matter how poor people are in Hunan, they're very concerned with politics. This is one reason that Hunan produces the best investigative journalists in the country.
Hunan food is spicy, and journalism can be even spicier. If the scholar is one motive for Hunan journalists, the bandit would have to be another. Yes. Some are like Rodeo, fighting for the oppressed. Others use their reporting to shake down opposition.
This character can make a big difference in times of chaos, but in times of peace, it's extremely damaging to the rule of law.
Luo got his start in newspaper journalism in 2001, at a time when media organizations were eager and allowed to attract advertisers and readers by pushing hard-hitting investigative reporting.
We caught the last golden decade of China's newspaper business.
In 2004, Luo's expose on official corruption in Hunan province's Chenzhou city helped to bring down the mayor and other key members of his administration. 2 years later, Luo moved to Caijing magazine, then widely seen as the country's most independent media outlet. In 2012, Luo blew the whistle on China's then energy czar, the highest-ranking Chinese official to be toppled by a reporter's social media post. He was sentenced to life in jail for taking nearly $6 million in bribes. Luo had to break the news on social media because, he says, Caijing magazine couldn't publish it.
According to media rules in China, you need to get official permission to report on officials at this level. And of course, you can't get that permission.
And that, says Luo, is why he quit journalism in 2014. He just couldn't get the contents of his reporting published. And since then, he adds, things have gotten progressively worse.
At Caijing, I could publish 90 to 100% of the material I got. Now they can only publish about 10%. And they're the media outlet with the most freedom.
Luo does not expect the situation to improve in the next 5 years. That's how long President Xi Jinping's second term is expected to last. Xi has railed against Western notions of a free press and meted out harsh punishment to critics, including scholars, lawyers, and activists. In the eastern city of Hangzhou, I spoke to another member of the so-called Hunan gang of journalists, Deng Fei. He says many of his former colleagues feel demoralized and they've been quitting the business in droves.
These people have made a contribution to the nation. They're useful. We should vow to support and protect them. Protecting investigative reporters is really just protecting our nation.
After more than a decade of reporting on corruption and social problems, Deng quit journalism in 2011 and went into charity work. He's optimistic that in the long term, the situation for journalists will improve.
If our reports can't be published today, we'll do something else. The day will surely come when the government discovers it needs us. We're still young. There's no hurry.
Luo Changqing is pretty patient too.
I can give it another try, say 30 years.
By the way, Luo is 36 this year. Anthony Q, NPR News, Changsha.
This is NPR News.
18 minutes past 6 now. Coming up later this morning on Forum in the first hour, retired Foothill College astronomy professor Andrew Fracknoy joins the program to talk about the total eclipse that will be visible on August 21st, how best to see it, and he'll talk about his newest children's book as well. Then in the 10 o'clock hour, Ken Burns and Lynn Novick join the program. The filmmakers will talk about the lasting effects of the Vietnam era and the stories they uncovered from a decade's worth of filming. That'll be Forum today from 9 till 11. And then...
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Wildfires in the West seem to be more frequent, and they've been burning hotter and longer than in the past. One big reason? Climate change.
While there have always been the occasional big fires, they have gotten much more common since roughly 2000.
That's next time on Here and Now.
Here and Now can be heard beginning at 11 this morning here on KQED. The time is 6:19.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Demonstrators gathering in New York City's Times Square yesterday protesting President Trump's decision to not allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. Melissa Sklarz of the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund says the president's list of intolerance keeps growing.
We already know what this president thinks of immigrants and Mexicans and Muslims and the poor and the sick. And now we know what he thinks about transgender people.
Transgender advocacy groups are vowing to challenge the president's order. A pair of rulings by Canada's Supreme Court has included a warning that Native groups must be consulted on major resource development projects. Dan Carpinchuk reports the decisions could form a model for future development reviews and decisions.
The High Court ruled that Canada's National Energy Board failed to properly consult Inuit about a project that included seismic testing, which would have harmed marine mammals in the region and affect the Inuits' way of life. In another ruling, the court threw out a claim by an Ontario Native group trying to stop expansion of a pipeline, saying there was proper consultation. Analysts say the decision means there is no longer any uncertainty in Canada about the duty to consult.
Dan Carpinchuk reporting. I'm Windsor Johnston, and you're listening to NPR News in Washington.
It's 20 minutes past 6, and Joe McConnell's here to bring us another look at your ride to work this morning.
Looks like a crash at the Bay Bridge Maze westbound at the Diamond, the beginning of the Diamond Lane, right after the merge from 580. This is a motorcyclist down, said to be in the left lane, westbound Bay Bridge approach. This westbound San Mateo Bridge, the stall at the high-rise apparently has not cleared. It's still in the right lane. Backing up traffic across the span now. There was a separate collision westbound at Foster City Boulevard to the side of the road. Joe McConnell for KQED.
Thanks, Joe. His report brought to you by Positive Coaching Alliance, and his next update is about 10 minutes away. Support for KQED comes from UCSF, from neighborhood health screenings to an education partnership with the San Francisco Public Schools. UCSF is committed to supporting the local Bay Area community. Learn more at ucsf.edu. And by Mattress Firm. Mattress Firm stores are collecting school supply items for local foster children, backpacks, art supplies, binders, and more. Learn more at mattressfirmfosterkids.org. Brian Watt will be along to bring us local reporting from KQED News in just a moment, and then later today...
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, the Senate takes up a series of votes to determine the future of health care for tens of millions of Americans. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
The PBS News Hour comes your way this afternoon and each weekday afternoon from 3 till 4 o'clock here on KQED Public Radio. Support for NPR today comes from American Express Open, which is committed to helping businesses turn their best ideas into reality. American Express Open wants to help with money and know-how so businesses can say yes to their best ideas and get business done. By Care Evolution, committed to connecting healthcare to improve population health through patient engagement and care coordination solutions for providers, health plans, and communities. Learn more at careevolution.com. By Atlassian, maker of collaboration software, Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, and Trello, working to help teams across industries ascend to new heights to create what's next. Learn more at Atlassian.com. Atlassian, team up. And by the listeners of KQED. The time is now 23 minutes past 6.
It's Morning Edition on KQED. I'm Brian Watt. The Phillips 66 oil company is making a big ask. Right now, it's allowed to use 59 ships each year in the San Francisco Bay to move crude to its refinery in Rodeo. But it wants to more than double that. Tonight, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is holding a public meeting about the company's big ask in Vallejo. For more on this, we're joined by KQED's Ted Goldberg. Now, Ted, Phillips 66 can't just move more ships through the bay and sort of see what happens?
No, they need to get permission from local air regulators. Basically, they have a permit, and that permit right now allows them to drop off 51,000 barrels of oil a day at the Rodeo refinery's marine terminal. They want to increase that limit to 130,000 barrels a day. This would be a major expansion of the amount of oil that's coming through San Francisco Bay to the marine terminal, and it has environmentalists worried. They believe that if you have more oil tankers going through the bay, that just increases the risk of oil spills that could do major ecological damage to San Francisco Bay.
Now, the refinery is located in Rodeo, but tonight's meeting is in Vallejo. Why is that?
So, the last time there was an oil spill outside the marine terminal in Rodeo, at the same time, dozens of Vallejo residents got sick and went to the hospital because of an odor that was wafting through the city. The Coast Guard later confirmed that the oil spill was caused by either an oil tanker or by the marine terminal, some problem thereof. Last month, when there was a similar meeting dealing with this expansion, Vallejo residents showed up in Hercules, where the meeting took place, and said, hey, we were the community that was impacted by this last oil spill. You need to have a meeting in our city so we can ask you similar questions because we were the ones who suffered, and the Air District agreed.
So do we know why Phillips 66 is making this request? Is this part of some larger change in operations at the refinery?
It looks like Phillips 66 wants to change the way in which they receive crude oil. In their application, they told the Air District, we are not going to refine more crude at our facility. What we're going to do is transfer less crude through pipeline to the refinery and increase by the same amount the crude that comes in through ship. Environmentalists actually see something else at play here. Last year, the San Luis Obispo City Council and Planning Commission rejected a proposal by Phillips 66 that would have increased the amount of crude that comes through the Central Coast by rail. And because that was blocked, environmentalists say, hey, you got blocked there. It looks like you want to try to bring in more crude by the sea.
So what happens next?
So after tonight's meeting, there'll be a long process by which Phillips 66 and the Air District work on an environmental impact report. That report will eventually go to the Air District's Board of Directors, which will most likely vote on the proposal sometime next year.
KQED's Ted Goldberg, thanks so much.
Good to be with you.
From moving oil now to moving people. The SMART train is on the cusp of opening in the North Bay. The Sonoma-Marin Area Rail Transit Commuter Line run between the Santa Rosa Airport and downtown San Rafael. It's been a long wait. The ride so far has had a bump or two. Here's KQED reporter and the pride of Petaluma, Danielle Venti.
The platform in Petaluma is totally packed with eager riders, waiting for the newest, arguably shiniest thing to roll into town.
Oh, I hear the train!
Sue Renoa of Katati is on the platform with her baby granddaughter, Leia.
This is her thing, is trains. Who's coming? Is the train coming?
Are you excited about the train? During the month of July, the SMART train offered free preview rides. They've been extremely popular, often standing room only. And there's something like relief in the air.
We've been waiting and waiting for this. Yeah, we can't wait till the service is on full blast.
It was almost a decade ago that voters approved a sales tax to fund the train, and the line has been under construction and testing for the past 5 years. But I remember North Bay residents yearning for the revival of passenger rail since at least the early 90s. So for Leia's mother, Reagan, the wait feels like...
Yeah, forever. It's been a long
time. Here's the train!
Woo! This is such a big deal because traffic here is so bad. Highway 101 essentially turns into a parking lot for much of the day, even on the weekends. As we pulled out of the station, I met Al and Joyce Gernst from Novato. They were heading up to Santa Rosa to go to dinner. I asked Al if they would have driven there.
Not in a million years, not a chance. Well, you can see the traffic was stopped in both directions. Not a chance, no.
As with most big transit projects, getting the train to this point hasn't been all smooth sailing. It took 2 tries to get voters to pass the sales tax to fund the system.
The first time they didn't quite have the popular support in the electorate to get it over the 2/3 majority required for passage.
Bruce Robinson is the soon-to-retire news director at KRCB, the NPR affiliate in Sonoma County. He's also my former boss and has reported on the Smart Saga for more than a decade. On that first ballot attempt in 2006, Sonoma voters overwhelmingly approved it.
Yeah, it got way more than the 2/3 needed in Sonoma the first time around.
But it couldn't go ahead because there weren't enough yes votes in Marin. When the proposal again made it to the ballot in 2008, it passed. However,
by that time it was more expensive, the economy tanked, delays have kicked in.
People could have been riding way back in 2014, according to old press clippings. The delay hasn't been the only source of frustration. Some have complained about the sound of the train signal. Others worry that fares are going to be too expensive and the trains won't run often enough. Even with all of that, people are really